Okay, animation 2, we're going to do a little bit more advanced movement within Animate, or within Animate, listen to me, within Maya, to create a ball bouncing, okay? So you understood like the general properties of Maya and how to change perspectives, how to move objects in space, how to change variables over here with your channel box. So what I'd like you to do is this. We're going to create a bouncing ball, but we're going to change some stuff up here in terms of our layout. And I'm going to put in first a sphere, okay? And then we're going to just move it in space just to have it bounce across the stage, a couple bounces, right? So how do I know that I'm like right on the ground, quote unquote ground? How, it can be a little bit challenging, right? So we're going to do this first. You ready? We're gonna make the bounce, and then we're going to fix the bounce. So I'm going to change my frames to 24 just because it's simple. I'm going to go to frame 1. I'm going to drop my keyframe by clicking S. I'm going to move forward. Oh, no, you big fool. I'm going to move forward in time first. And did not drop my keyframe. I did not drop a keyframe, you big fool. Cool. All right. Let's move that ball up. Bouncing high. Big bounces, right? So we go from here, bouncing up. Our next one, we're going to move forward in time. We're going to bounce down. So move forward, and then we're going to go down. That's a little too forward, but that's okay because we'll show you how to fix stuff later. Drop my keyframe. Move forward in time. Move forward, move up. Shouldn't bounce as high this time. That's okay. Forward and down, back onto here. Cool. So we have this. That is terrible bouncing animation, okay? We don't have squash and stretch, we don't have arc, we don't have a lot of things, okay? So let's fix that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Windows. I'm going to go to down here, and I'm going to open up my graph editor. You're going to need that, and it's going to pop up in a separate window. I'm going to put it aside for a second, okay? Then I'm going to go to, where was that? Orthographic side. Okay, so go to panels. It is not the very top part up here. It's panels right here, and I want you to go to orthographic, and I want you to choose a side view. Okay, and give me my side view. What's happening? I only want the one. Oh, I need to change my thing first. Ha ha ha! You big fool. Okay, I only want the one up. Panel, orthographic side. Okay, cool. I guess I had to change it to first my perspective. I thought it would just jump me right into my orthographic just fully on the screen. But because I was on my 4-up display here in my viewport, change it to your perspective and then panel, orthographic side. Look, we're all learning together. Okay, the nice thing about the orthographic view is that it shows you from a pure side, so you don't have to move up and down. The red line is the quote-unquote ground. And so when we're seeing our ball moving in space, we get a much better idea of whether it's actually hitting the ground or not, right? So on keyframe 1, it's a little bit off. Let's move it down a touch. Keyframe 6, it's fine because it's in the air. 7, let's move that up so it hits the ground. 16, 20, back up. Now I know, and this is going to come in super helpful when you're doing walk cycles and character movement, to make sure that the feet are, I don't know, touching the ground is actually really good. Okay, so let's watch our animation from a distance, played out here, and let's look at path. Does that look like a good animation? Well, the answer is no, right? The animation, the ball comes up to this point right here. On the second one, it's over here. It feels a little bit odd, right? Well, a good view of this could be this thing right here, which is that graph editor that we opened up. Now I'm going to go to Translate Y, which is the animation that I've created, right? And you can see here, oh, you know what? I'm a big fool. I moved it, right? But what did I not do? When I went to these keyframes to check the placement, I never hit S to save my keyframes. Be a goof. So let's push that back down. Let's go back to 20. Move that up. S. Okay, cool. Now there we go. Now, let's say I was off a little bit. S, right? In my graph editor, sometimes this is an easier way to view it because I can see that line right there that is the ground, right? And then this one is off. And so I could, at this point, just take this keyframe and then move that up and hit S. And then that is now keyframed. If I wanted the bounce on the second bounce to not go as high, just knock this down a little bit. And so, again, this is maybe a little bit easier of a way to animate sometimes, is to look at it not from this perspective of a ball, but of a line. Okay, cool. So I'm happy with this. I think this actually plays a little bit better. Let's play it, see. Cool. Now, we need to arc. We need some arcs. Now, keep in mind that you have all these functions up here, right? And they all have to do with handles, or we call them like Bezier handles. And the nice thing in Adobe is when you scroll over something, a little yellow label comes up of what that thing is. But that doesn't happen in Maya. It does show up right down here, though. So look at the bottom of my screen here as I'm scrolling over these things. It tells you what they are. I just put it down there in that bottom left corner, okay? And so the thing that we're looking for is, where are you at? I'm looking for, what am I looking for? I'm looking for flat. I'm looking to flatten. I thought it was a straight line. Get out of here. Flat tangents. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the top part right here, okay, of each one of my top keyframes, okay? And I hold down Shift to do that. So I click on the first one and I hold down the second one. And then I want to go to flat tangents. And you see what it did? It flattens out the top there so that way it creates this curve, right? Now let's look at how that affects our animation. Okay, it's adding a little bit more of a curve at the top. It's looking a little bit better. Okay, cool. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and I don't like the way this is curving. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. You can start messing around with how much this arcs at the top. I like a little bit more of an arc in the bounce. I think it's kind of cool. And I'm going to click down here on these bottom ones right here. And for these, I need to break the tangent. Come on. Right, which is that one right there. Break it. Okay, and what that allows me to do is it allows me to move these independently of one another. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it bounce just like that, a real sharp bounce on each one of these. Break the tangent. Notice that turns into a dotted line. That's cool. Come over here, same thing, break the tangent. Nice. Cool. Now let's look to see what it looks like, because I think it's going to look a little bit better. Well, that looks like much more of a bouncing ball, right? Now, what do we need to do at this point? Well, we need to add the squash and the stretch, because this would be a good time to do that. All right. Now, at this point, I think we're pretty good with this thing, but I'm going to minimize this, because I think it's always helpful to have this graph editor up to do really quick changes every once in a while, okay? So, in here, remember when we're doing our squash and our stretch, a very rudimentary squash and stretch would be, put a keyframe here for some reason, would be once it hits the ground, remember this is when it squashes, but we need to keyframe the frame before and the frame afterward, and the frame after that actually. But so if I go here, I need to keyframe this to say at this point I want this to stay a circle. Because if I go to this frame without doing that and squash it, it's going to animate the squash from here to here. Okay, we don't want to do that. We want it to only animate from here to here. And at this point, this is when I would want to squash. And remember, when you do squash something, it doesn't just squash downward like this, right? Because that doesn't make a ton of sense. Because where did all that matter go? It would have to go out to the side as well, right, as it squashes. So we're going to squash that. Make sure that I hold down my S. My keyframe here, this is when it should stretch, right? Well, if I stretch it right now, it's going to animate a stretch from here and then back to a circle. So I need to put another keyframe right there. And so on this one, now I can stretch it. stretching out. Remember, if I do just this, well, what you're saying is that ball has increased in volume. Well, that doesn't make any sense because it hasn't. So you need to get rid of some of that volume on the side. And again, this is a very rudimentary way to create squash. But also, it's bouncing straight upward now, and I actually probably need to do more of a rotation. So let's move that a little bit in space. Hit S to save my keyframe. Let's see. Better, right? So let's watch it from, I'm going to go back to my perspective view, and let's watch it like that. Okay, I think we're doing good, all right? So this is what I want you to accomplish today. I would like you to create this bouncing ball using the graph editor, and I would like high arc, and I want you to break those tangents, flattening them at the top, just like we showed you. I want you to create squash and stretch, 2 bounces, perfect squash and stretch, not your version of squash and stretch, but like a physics version of squash and stretch, okay? And then we're going to turn this in. You're going to turn this into me, and the way that you're going to do that is you're going to go to File. You're going to go to Save Scene As. And then from here, we're going to call it Final Ball Bounce. Leave it as a Maya binary file, which will be a .mb, which is perfectly good. Choose your desktop. Choose the folder that you created for 3D animation because you're way better than I am in terms of organization. You already have a folder for this thing, which is perfect. Save that at, continue, cool. This file right here is the file that you're going to provide me, a .mb file, okay? So do that, submit that today, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks so much.